Good afternoon. In his introduction, Chris talked about leveraging the long-term impact of study abroad and kind of embracing international experiences. I'd argue that that logic really translates quite well to Olympic Games in and of itself. For 2 weeks, 3 weeks, every 2 years, the world dislodges in a way and really focuses their attention on the largest peaceful gathering of nations that the world's ever seen. And the Olympic spirit is really an oasis of potential. Today I will talk about the Olympic legacy, kind of go over planning for the Olympics, reflecting on the experiences of past host cities, and then a look ahead to London, that's getting ready for the 2012 Games that start in just about a year and 2 months. Very briefly, my background, I graduated in May from Luther College with a focus in accounting. I like the term that Chris coined earlier, the serial study abroad student tutoring step that defines me. Although for smaller chunks of time, Luther has a January term program where we have a month between fall and spring semester. And one way or another, I've gotten onto 6 continents since starting my college career, spending my most of J-term. My sort of longer experience, though, was right here in Chicago with the ACM Business Entrepreneurship and Society program, just down in the State and Lake at the Chicago Theater. So we had our classroom, fantastic experience both for learning and an internship there, in which I was working with an urban planning firm here in the city, whose client, one of the largest clients, was the city of Chicago, and one thing I was exposed to was the 2016 Chicago Olympic bid. And depending on your perspective, that bid tragically died alongside Mary Davis' political career. Getting last, not a pro-D in the audience, noted. Then lastly, just very briefly, my most recent J-term was in continental Europe studying the Olympic system, visiting throughout Europe. And the itinerary here was a very, very quick 3 weeks, a lot of travel for a month. Starting out in Munich, Germany, I've been working down the Trino, Italy, so we had to pass summer and winter games venue, stopping along the way in Lausanne, Switzerland, which is the headquarters of the International Olympic Committee, wrapping up in London for a week where they're ramping up for 2012, and actually a tag on for 2 days in New York City talking with NBC and Comcast to get the media perspective of marketing the games. Anyway, Olympic legacy. In the background here, my buddy Josh is going to bat with the Sydney 2000 Olympic torch. Not the intended purpose, but a good photo op nonetheless. The Olympic legacy is really, it's hard to define as a ubiquitous term for different cities. It means different things. But a description I really liked and a researcher we talked to would describe it as that sport is a social, political, and economic phenomenon. Social in that, as I mentioned, it's the largest peaceful gathering of nations on Earth. It happens every 2 years, larger in the summer. Economically, huge infrastructure demands on a city. But you can really turn it around. It's a great opportunity for a city to redefine itself both culturally, politically, and physically. And we've seen that used very differently over the past 3 years. Beijing 2008, somewhat a political statement, and socially, culturally, 2004 and Athens is kind of a whole. We've had a theme today of going full circle, so we saw the Olympics come back to Athens in 2004. Planning for the Olympics, bids are done 7 years in advance. So I was here in 2009, spring 2009, and that was 7 years before 2016. Yeah, did the math in my head. I counted with slow math. But so that was all going on when I was here in 2009. And 7 years is not at all too soon to start planning for the Olympic Games. Huge investments, and the cities that have the most positive, lasting legacy of the Olympics are really testaments to good planning and design efforts. And for that reason, it must be viewed as a long-term investment. And a lot can really be gained from infrastructure, culturally and socially. So in that regard, having gone to Munich, having gone to Trino, Munich hosting the games in 1972, the Summer Games, and Trino in 2006, is night and day in terms of planning efforts, what's there today. Trino, it's quite sad. You go to the Olympic Village in Trino today, it's dilapidated, it's abandoned. You go, the O is falling off, it's no longer there. And that's just 6 years ago now. 6 years ago in 2011. 5, sorry. But that was shocking. Munich is on the complete opposite end of the spectrum. We're going on 40 years from 1972, and the Olympic Park is huge. It's vibrant, and it's used by citizens of the community. The same pool where Mark Spitz won his 7 gold medals is now used by the community. It's open 24 hours. Sorry, not 24 hours probably, but it's there. The moral of the story is it's there, and they're actually recycling it. They're hoping to. Munich is a leading candidate for the 2018 Winter Games. And because they planned so well for the Summer Games, they can go and use all those assets that they leveraged and really bring that forward for 2018. They're one of 3 finalists and are in very advanced stages of that bid. Finally, Torino, kind of a cultural legacy of happenstance. They didn't plan well from an infrastructure standpoint, but going there now, they're on the map. People will tell you that they used to be the city beside Milan, but now they have international tourists coming in, and that's really kind of a benefit that just goes with the Olympic Games. It puts you on the map. Going forward to London 2012, London's really done a great job, in my opinion, of planning for the Olympics. We met with many developers and people involved in all aspects of planning, and what I found really neat, they're not displacing any citizens in London, and they're having their major Olympic Park pretty much in London proper, in the middle of the city. They're revitalizing a very old industrial neighborhood, which was all but abandoned in many regards, and revitalizing it. It's, for those who've been to London and Stratford, kind of on the east side, which is historically not a real significant part of the city, but really turning that around and making that a commercial and transportation hub. They have a new Stratford International Railway Station, which you can get, I'm told, from Brussels to London in just over 2 hours on a train, which is pretty amazing. They also have an emphasis on sustainable development there. The comparison to Beijing was such that with the Olympic Stadium for London, which is pictured in the background, it's something of 20 to 25% of the metal and aluminum resources used compared to Bird's Nest, the big structure used in Beijing. And they're keeping most things on permanent structures. The Olympic Stadium will be used by West Ham Football Club in a bidding process to keep that an active part of the community. So is it worth it? People have very different opinions. One of my good friends who I studied with in Chicago was here last year at the Symposium talking about the Chicago bid in depth and many of the social justice issues that went along with that. Chicago did not have the London plan. They were going to displace citizens and move people south and put the Olympic Stadium up on the south side and make it a temporary structure. They're going to put up an 80,000 seat stadium and tear it down after it was done. That's why it all goes back to planning. When leveraged intelligently, it's a sound investment in the future. Many cities, unfortunately, bid for just the sake of having Olympics, kind of the grandeur and glory. Was Chicago in that category? It's up for debate. But London's a great example. I'm highly confident that we'll see a great showing in 2012. And yeah, thank you very much.